Pat, we're picking up stuff from yours. Might want to mute.
How's that?
Jane, do you want to start this? And we'll pick up Paul when he joins in.
I'm wondering, while we're waiting on Paul, do we have a, just to maybe save some time, do we have a volunteer for 1C, doing the motion for the amendment number 1 to the contract for asbestos?
I'm willing. If
Okay.
somebody else is dying to do it.
Okay, so yeah, so thanks, Aaron. And then Counselor Schuster, do you see that we will recess, and then you'll probably make the motion to recess the special meeting, and then we would start the work session?
I can do
Is
that.
that right? Nancy and Brian, would that be okay?
Sorry, I had to unmute him in chambers. That is correct.
Okay, so Brian will make the motion to recess the special meeting, and then we'll go into the work session. So, okay, I think I've got 603. Is that what about everybody else has too?
605.
I have 605.
You have 605. Okay, well, should we continue to wait, or do you want me to get the ball rolling here so we can? Are you okay if I just get the ball rolling?
I'm good with that. Sooner we get going, sooner we get done.
Exactly, thank you.
Agreed.
So, okay. So everybody, as we'll start our meeting on 4/13/2021. We'll start with a special meeting, recess to a work session, and then go back into our special meeting for executive session. So let's have our city clerk start things out by reading the announcement for our special meeting.
Notice is hereby given that a special meeting of the Laramie City Council will be held Tuesday, April 13th, 2021, 6:00 p.m. via Zoom webinar ID 875-7941-8670, passcode 842749, through City Hall Council Chambers, 406 Ivinson Avenue, Laramie, Wyoming, for the following purpose. Number one, amendment number 1 to contract for asbestos containing material abatement at the Laramie Municipal Operations Center North Campus. And number 2, adjourn to executive session regarding litigation, Wyoming statute 16-4-405A, Roman numeral 3.
Thank you, City Clerk. If you could do roll call for us, please.
Cumby,
Here.
Gabriel,
Here.
Harrington,
Here.
O'Doherty,
Here.
Schuster,
Here,
Stelter,
Here.
Somerville,
Here.
Pierce,
Here.
Weaver, absent. So that's 8 present and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilor O'Doherty, can you get us started on item 1C?
Yes, I move to approve amendment number 1 to contract for asbestos containing material abatement at the Laramie Municipal Operations Center North Campus with Risk Removal LLC in the amount of $19,049.00 and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Thank you. We have a second, and I'm assuming City Manager Jordan or potentially Brooks Webb, you want to get us started on this one?
Yeah, Vice Mayor, City Council, I'll take this real quick. Before we started the project at the Municipal Operations Center North Campus last year, we had identified some asbestos containing materials in a few of the buildings. We contracted with Risk Removal LLC to abate those materials, and they did. They did a good job. In December, City Council approved the contract for GH Phipps to come in and start the construction work at the facility. GH Phipps came in, and as they removed some walls through selective demolition, we found some more asbestos containing materials and some suspected black mold hiding behind some walls. What we would like to do is amend Risk Removal's contract for them to come back in. The amendment is over my spending authority, which is why we're here with council tonight. The reason for the special meeting is that we're trying to expedite the abatement process. Risk Removal is actually in town right now. And if they leave town at the end of the week, we're going to be about 2 months out on their schedule. And so we're trying to expedite the process, get things done, and not have to pay a remobilization charge for them to come back in. So that's what I got for you. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Thank you. Do I have questions from council at this time regarding this issue? I don't see any hands raised. Do we have any additional members from Staff needing to make a comment on this issue? Okay, do we have any members of the public wanting to comment on the issue on the table right now? I don't see any hands raised by our attendees. Okay. Am I right, Nancy?
You're correct.
Okay. So last chance for council to ask questions of our Public Works Director. Okay, let's just call for the vote. Are we good with that? Yep, okay.
Cumby,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Stalder,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes,
Weaver, absent. That's 8 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
thank you. So I will call on Counselor Schuster.
I move, let's see, I lost my spot though, right? I move we end this special meeting and go into our regular meeting on our work night. Sorry.
Yes. Before we get a second on that, I think we need to have it called a recess, but I'll check with the city clerk.
Yes, please.
So Counselor Schuster, if you could just say, please, I move that we recess.
I move that we recess from our special meeting and go into our work session tonight on capital budget.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a second by Counselor Harrington. And I guess we better do a roll call vote on that, right, Nancy, in this case?
You could do a voice vote unless you think it's close, and then we could do a roll call.
I think we're fine. So how about if we have a voice vote on this?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, great. So we are now recessed from our special meeting and we'll jump right into our work session. Let's move to public comments on non-agenda items for this evening. Do we have any public comments this evening on non-agenda items for our work session? Again, I don't see any hands raised, and City Clerk, did we get an announcement or did we get any inquiries for comments on non-agenda items?
I have received no requests ahead of time.
Okay.
Point of
I know
information.
Counselor O'Doherty has her hand up.
Yeah, I just want a point of information for the public that they know that we're discussing the capital budget tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I do see a hand raised. I see Billy Harris has his hand raised. If we can let him in the room for 3 minutes, thank you. Hello, Mr. Harris. I'll quote our mayor, you have the floor.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you for all the opportunity to speak. In Resolution 2020-38, Council approved investigation into areas where mental health professionals could be appropriately utilized in place of Laramie Police Department officers. Now that you're entering your budgetary sessions, I urge you to consider reinvesting funds from the Laramie Police Department budget into community partners and organizations specializing in mental health. The funds used by officers and specifically by those responding to mental health crises should be contracted or given to mental health professionals. With these funds reinvested, Laramie could begin to this intervention team as a program, a successful program like Cahoots in Oregon. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for a comment on non-agenda items? I don't see any. So let's move right into our capital budget discussion. That exciting bit of our time spent discussing our budget. So City Manager Janine Jordan, I guess it's you, so take it away.
Okay. Good evening, Council. Thank you. Just to reiterate, excuse me, what Councilor O'Doherty had emphasized, our schedule for this evening is to focus on the capital and construction budget. As the Council will know, this looks at vertical construction, infrastructure projects that would be underground, and also some of our larger equipment purchases. For the edification of the public who might be interested in the general operations budget, work sessions for that will occur in May. Tonight we start the first of 3 scheduled work sessions on the capital and construction budget with operations and maintenance budgets beginning in May. So Council, the budget team had distributed to you prior to this work session the capital construction budget. So I would refer you to that document and hopefully have that open and in front of you. We'll be referring to the capital budget throughout the evening. For the public who might be participating in this work session this evening, the city's budget, both capital budget and as well as our adopted operations budget, are published on the city website. Those are found under the City Manager tab and the budget section. And there you can download and follow along in the fiscal year 2022 recommended capital investment and construction plan along with the council and myself this evening. Any questions before we get going? Councilor O'Doherty, it looks like, maybe.
I was thinking it might be more expeditious if we just write down our questions, but if you'll tell us what page number we're on when you're discussing something. I think last time we had hyperlinks. I don't see the hyperlinks this time, but if we write down our page numbers and questions, because you often answer our questions before we get to them. So I'm just suggesting that as a format if everybody thinks that's reasonable.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Janine, yeah, I'm fine with that. Does anybody have any objections? Janine, are you okay with that?
That is just great. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay.
We did discuss, Council, how we would handle this budget work session tonight, given this sort of awkward format that we're in with Zoom. We've circulated for you an agenda, and I'll let you know that tonight we'll be covering probably the first like 70 or 80 pages. And I, as you know, I'm not going to go through this page by page, but yes, happy to answer any questions as we move through this. I'll be presenting tonight along with the Public Works Department, our Chief Operating Officer, and the Assistant City Manager. We hope to make it through highlights of our major focus areas in terms of capital construction for this upcoming season, the Recreation Center, and also touch finally tonight on our major multi-year projects that you find in our major capital construction fund. So the clerk is also, just so you know, she's going to follow along with the visual here to kind of help you and also members of the public navigate through and make sure we're all literally on the same page, and I certainly will reference page numbers. Okay, so with that in mind, let me get over to my document here. And I apologize, but I newly got 2 screens and I'm having to navigate through those. So let me get my document open. We're going to start on page 3, counselors, with just what we call the City Manager's Transmittal letter. And I use this as an opportunity to highlight some key aspects of our budgets for you. So on page 3, you'll note that I did remind the council and the public that last year, because of the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, and that really coinciding with the review of our 2-year budget, we did determine last year to deviate from our standard biennial budget process because of the pandemic, and so we adopted only a 1-year budget program. However, when it comes to our capital construction program, we did publish last year the entirety of our ongoing 6-year capital construction program to be sure that the council as well as the community understood the full scope of needs that we have as far as large-scale capital improvement expenditures for the period of 3 bienniums or 6 years. We also wanted to publish that so that it would be clear and apparent to you why and how we schedule projects. Notably, we needing to schedule projects, whether they be across, say, water and sewer in a sequential way, but we need to schedule those sequentially both in time and then also in collaboration with some of our major local agencies like the Wyoming Department of Transportation, which have planned improvements in 3rd Street and in Grand Avenue, which of course are state highways, as well as planning in collaboration with the university, which as we know has a very robust capital construction program of its own undergoing on the campus. So I have some good news, I guess, to report with respect to the pandemic. When we sat here last year, we were really uncertain how the pandemic would affect our revenue receipts and our cost of doing business, basically. So as you know, we did restrict spending on March 23rd of 2020, and I had asked staff to only commit any spending for essential core mission critical kinds of services and activities. I did rescind that spending restriction in late 2020 for a number of reasons, notably that we had a successful CARES Act application for federal funding from the first impact assistance funds that the federal government handed out. In addition, our sales tax is slightly up. And in addition to those 2 things, we have a third positive indicator, which is some impact assistance funding that we've seen coming from the regional wind energy projects. So with those 3 elements in mind, I was able to lift the spending restriction. Boy, I'm sorry, I cannot talk tonight. We also, as you know, while revenue was up, we've also had a lot of unforeseen expenses as we've dealt with the pandemic, things like protective supplies and equipment. We had to increase our inventory of disposable items for all the reasons that are obvious. And we've also made some physical modifications to our public buildings and our work spaces, most notably some really extensive modification to City Hall here and to our other work areas. And then also we've modified pretty much every business process and service delivery method that we have in the last 12 months. So it's been a really interesting year. But I am pleased to report to you that although spending was up, revenue's up slightly as well, and we feel like we're in a fairly comfortable place as we look at the upcoming fiscal year that will start July 1st. We're going to talk more about recreation center operations when we start to talk about the O&M budget in May, so I'm going to skip over that part of this page, and I will just let you know that as far as our capital construction budget goes, it appears that we will be on time and really on schedule for the projects that we had hoped to accomplish in this upcoming year. And if you don't have any questions in a general sense, then I will dive into the specifics of those projects with staff. Okay, looks like we're good. I don't see anything, Vice Mayor. Do you or Clerk? No? Okay.
No, I don't see any
Wonderful.
hands raised, so I think we're good to go.
Excellent. Okay, so we're going to move to page 5, with just a quick refresher on our funding budget. As you know, the city accounts for the monies that we spend through fund accounting. I would invite, if I say anything incorrectly, for Jennifer Wade, our Deputy Director for Administrative Services and Finance, or Malia Brown, our Chief Operating Officer, to jump in and correct me. But after all these years, I hope I've got this down. I will tell you that the funds that are most applicable to capital construction are noted there at the top of page 6. They are the Capital Construction Fund. This is where we account for major projects that span multiple years. The council will also be well acquainted with the specific purpose tax capital fund. This is where we account for the monies that come in from the fifth penny tax and, from the sixth penny tax, and also the budget expenditures to complete those projects that the voters have approved. And then our other three major funds where capital construction and capital projects occur are what we call our proprietary funds or enterprise funds. Proprietary or enterprise funds are supported not necessarily by tax dollars, but are supported by user fees and charges, water rates, sewer rates, garbage fees. We use these funds to account for those operations, and they're really the kind of accounting that a business would do, with the only notable exception that we don't have to account for profit. We run a break-even operation. We bring in fees and user charges to support these critical utility systems, and we charge just enough to get the job done with no need for profit. So those are the five major funds that we'll be discussing tonight. I will mention we're also going to touch a little bit on the Recreation Center Fund, which is a special revenue fund also, and we'll let the Assistant City Manager talk to you about that later in the presentation. Okay, so we're going to skip forward a few pages, and we're going to go to, I think it's page 10. Well, no, actually, let's go to page 11, Clerk. So as I've mentioned, the fund accounting, that fund accounting also corresponds with the type of infrastructure that we talk about. First and foremost, in the general fund, we have our street and our stormwater systems. And you'll see on the page of 11 there, just a kind of quick map and overview of the 143 miles of public streets and 42 miles of public alleys that the city maintains. About 90% of those surfaces are paved. We still, in Laramie, as we all well know, have about 14 miles, a little less than 10% of our street and alley system that remain unpaved. And as I think everybody knows, the majority of those unpaved miles of road continue to exist in what is referred to, anecdotally as West Laramie, or the area of town that lies west of Interstate 80. Reason for that, of course, is that was a rural subdivision annexed many decades ago, and it's been an ongoing project for the city to pave those services. We've paved the majority of, we placed the majority of pavement in West Laramie in the last 8, 9, 10 years, and we continue, and you'll see as we talk about this through the evening, to have plans to expand the asphalt or paved surfaces and minimize the gravel surfaces that we find throughout town, and particularly on that west side. At the bottom of page 11, we talk a little bit about our paver system. And I want to touch on this quickly and invite our Public Works Director, or COO, to jump in as well. I will tell you, we have historically used this paver system. An interesting thing that will be happening this year is the gentleman who provided those services to us for decades has retired and will be taking with him into retirement his sort of proprietary paver system for managing pavement systems. So we will be rating our pavement surfaces this year, as we do every couple years, but using a new provider. And so it'll be very interesting to see what the new provider's methodology reveals, and if it deviates significantly from the methodology that Mr. Borsad has used to determine the condition index rating for our paved surfaces. In any case, we have published for you here at the bottom of page 11 and the top of page 12 the current condition statistics for our pavement system. And what I can tell you generally is we are striving to improve these. In fact, as the council well know, we look at these every single year. We use this to determine where we're going to make pavement improvements in the community, and to try to attain the City Council's goal of increasing the pavement condition index average for the city as a whole. I'm going to skip down now a few more pages if I can. In these ensuing pages 12, 13, 14, Council, you'll recall a few years ago, Budget Team tried very hard to overhaul and really provide to the public and to you a detailed explanation of why we do what we do with capital projects, where we do them, and in what order we do them. So we've looked at streets a little bit here. If you move to page 15, there's a fairly detailed discussion of our storm sewer system, which is also found in the general fund. And then scrolling forward a little further to page 17, you start to see this detailed description of the investment prioritization factors that we use to come to and recommend where, when, how, and why we're going to spend money on all of these infrastructure systems. It's a lot of information, but I'm not going to read to you, but what I would emphasize to you is that we're taking into account all kinds of different things that sometimes will force the project to be in a year that maybe we don't want it to be in, but there may be preceding work that has to be done, say underground, before we can do a surface improvement in a street. And that's a really classic example of why there is an order to the operations and an order to the way that we designate funds. So there's a detailed description there for you through page 18 of some of those prioritization factors. As you get to page 19, we're going to talk a little bit about the parks and trails infrastructure that we have also found in general fund, really showing you the condition and types of existing amenities that exist around the community. And then a discussion ensuing thereafter about the recreation center and the ice and events arena as well. So this is all introductory material. And I don't want to spend too much time on it because I know that you're all interested in the projects that are being recommended for the upcoming fiscal year. So I think what I will do is ask for any questions as you've read through this. If you had so far had any questions on the introductory materials, which go through, I think, go through about page 30. And if you don't have questions on pages 1 through 30, then we'll move to page 30, which is where we start really the overview of our capital plan and looking specifically at allocations of funds.
I thought I saw Councilor Harrington with a question. Was that correct?
Thanks, Vice Mayor. I do have a question. And I hope it's not off topic. So bear with me, but and it may actually be a question for Malia. I'm curious if we have any more guidance on the American Rescue Plan funding and how that will interact with this budget that we're talking about. And the reason I ask now is just so that as we cruise through all of this, that I can sort of frame it in my mind. I don't know if that funding is available for sort of like already budgeted expenses, or whether we're talking like project specific funding, as we were with the previous CARES Act stuff.
Mayor, through you, Councilor Harrington, what we're recommending, I think it's in the transmittal letter that the city manager wrote, is we're asking for a special work session in June. None of the stuff in this budget has money allocated for anything of the new American Rescue Plan Act, and it's because of two things. We've learned that, and in fact, I've gone to more information coming through that their Treasury is still putting together guidance. I went to the National League of Cities last week on a Zoom call, and they're asking questions that are not in the documents right now, like, can we use it for streets? Can we do other stuff with this money? And so that's one thing. I think the other thing is that you have the state having lots of funding, and they're doing a May work session. And so what kind of funding are they doing? So let's say if the council wants to do the same funding, we don't duplicate it. We're getting the information before we have to duplicate the funding. There's other things like water assistance that we have contacted and the state's trying to start. However, it will not make anyone's utility bills. And so the state was kind of upset with that because they wanted the information out faster and they're not getting it. So we do have, this is not even our funding, it's at the state level, the water assistance program and the residential assistance program and things like that. So this is going to be over 3 to 4 years, and I think that we need to take a couple months to get some of those guidelines in and have a work session and really educate what the state's doing, what we can do, and have some recommendations, which Janine has, like I said, Janine had put that in her message and was going to talk about it. Sorry, Janine, if I
overstep, but basically that's what we're doing. And so none of this in this, but any of the budget that we're recommending right now. So if we're going to use some of the monies I think are coming into, they're not coming all at once. I think we're going to get one in May 12th, I heard, and then another one might be a year from now. So, we can then do an amendment to the budget and put in what we need or recommend at that time. And I think that's a better approach.
Thanks,
Thank
Malia.
you, Malia.
I'll just-
That's good info.
Yeah,
Sorry,
thank
Janine.
you. I'm sorry, Councilor Harrington. I should let the mayor cue us here. Yeah, and I apologize. I did skip over that in my message, but as Malia said, we're going to recommend that you convene in June or July as a council once we understand better the federal guidance and how the state might handle any of the pass-through issues. So, no, the American Recovery Plan Act monies are not here. You will see reflection of the CARES Act fund that we were able to secure. I will mention to the council too, since I have you, I have heard, although I haven't been able to confirm this through the Legislative Service Office, but I have heard that there's discussion at the legislature right now surrounding whether the legislators may want to minimize or claw back our direct distribution in recognition of the direct funding we're getting from the American Recovery Act that was just passed by Congress. Yeah. Now, again, I have not been able to confirm or get a bill draft, but I've been told one is in draft by a fairly reputable source. So I don't want to spread rumors that aren't true, but it wouldn't surprise me, and it would not be atypical of past activities that we've seen, like when the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act was passed by Congress in 2008, 9, 10 with the housing crisis. So it wouldn't be unusual for that to happen, but something that we'll need to be mindful of and watch as the legislature goes into special session in July, as I believe they're right now planning to do.
Thank you. So do we have any other questions before we start on the next section? Okay, great. I don't see any. So Janine, I guess you're good to go.
Okay, great. So we are now on page 30. And we're really getting into the meat and potatoes here of what the city will be doing in the upcoming construction season and the funds that we're recommending to be appropriated by you, councilors. Let me get back to the right screen again. Okay, so I'm looking at page 30. This is just a really high-level roll-up of the total recommended capital investment in construction that we would make in fiscal 22. You'll see it broken down there by streets, storm drainage, parks, trails, recreation, information technology systems, our city facilities, our water, wastewater, solid waste system, and then this fleet replacements. These are very large pieces of equipment, not little minor things typically. These are large, say, bulldozers or trash trucks, things of that nature. We also, in the overall view, show your water rights and protection as a capital investment program of its own as we invest funds to maintain our water right. We're showing the traffic lights there. Community enhancements covers things like wayfinding signage or beautification at entryways. And then finally, we have this broad category in the second to last row of studies, plans, and engineering services, which we also treat as a capital investment program. In total, the recommended investment is $100,794,702 across all of those infrastructure types. And as you look at the rows, you'll see in the first row, of course, the type of projects that are being completed. Second row, moving to the left, is your grants or contributions from any other outside source. Most typically, these are grant money. So, for example, you can see in the water infrastructure type, we expect in our budgeting for $7,807,109 in grant contributions, or those could also be state revolving funds grant program. Then in the next row, or excuse me, in the next column, any loans or leases are shown there. And when we say leases, sometimes we're doing what Malia often calls lease purchasing, but really we're making payments on some type of infrastructure over multiple years. SPT In the next column is your specific purpose tax, as I mentioned earlier, approved by the voters. And then in the next column to the right, we show reserves or revenue that we're pulling in separate from those previous columns. And then the last column is totaling it all up. So you can see we're planning an investment of $9.22 million in streets, $1.9 million in storm drainage, and so forth, moving down that final column and adding up to a total of $100 million.79. So that's the big overview. And then what we had planned to do this evening, I'm going to scroll down to the next page, page 31, while Brooks gets ready. I had asked Public Works to talk about our street projects, our stormwater projects, in terms of general focus areas, because what you will find, you'll go through all the detail in this budget book, but what really you find is that we have emphasized a couple areas of the community and a certain type of investment in this upcoming year. And the two areas of the community where there is emphasis across street, stormwater, and major year projects is the north side of town and West Laramie. To set the stage a little bit for Brooks to talk about those things in detail, North Laramie has been an emphasis area for the city for some time. And as you know, Council, the reason why is that we're trying to make sure that we're ready for growth and development, basically. So we've been making significant investments. We've been planning, as you know, for years, the North Side Tank Project, which will get underway this year, and some other projects that Brooks will talk about. But North Laramie encompasses primarily at this time water and sewer, but there is some street and stormwater work. And of course, we have the big project, which is the Municipal Operations Center and the renovation of the old Wyotech campus, and all of the work that'll go along with that. So Brooks will talk about our focus areas in North Laramie and West Laramie, and I think West Laramie goes without saying as to why we've been emphasizing work there. Page 31, what you can see as you look specifically at our projects is an overview of kind of all of the projects shown here and shown sequenced out in time by schedule, starting in the fiscal year that would begin July 1st, which is fiscal 22, and then reflecting our planned construction schedule through 2025. That chart continues onto page 32. And like that high-level monetary roll-up we just looked at, this is just a picture of everything that would happen across the city in the next 4 years by schedule. And this is inclusive as well of our proprietary funds, water, sewer, and garbage, although I don't think we have much in terms of solid waste. So Brooks, with that, I think I'll let you kind of take over and talk through those focus areas and the projects within them, and then we'll pause for some questions from council.
Okay, thank you, City Manager, City Council. So as you see there on page 32, we wanted to outline for you kind of how we work on our street prioritization. A lot of the projects are tied to, you see in the last two columns, development agreements or external partnerships. And so a lot of times the timelines on those drive things. So for instance, Flint Street Rehabilitation, you see we have an external partner, YDOT. YDOT is actually doing the traffic signal at the corner of Flint and 3rd, and we partnered with them to have them do, during the project, they're going to do asphalt work between 3rd and 4th Street. That street's in pretty poor condition, and so we thought it'd be advantageous for us to partner with them. So the reason Flint falls where it does, basically in fiscal year 22, is because of YDOT's schedule. They're driving that. So sometimes these development schedules or these external partnership schedules really are the driver. You see our first column is the PCI. PCI is one of many things we look at. Obviously, as you can see here, when we're putting projects together and prioritizing them and scheduling them out. But anyway, we wanted to give you kind of a look there to show you at some of the different items we look at when we're scheduling these street type projects. On page 33, we put together a map that shows all the capital projects for 21 through 27, the locations of them. On the city webpage, through the engineering page, we have a GIS map that shows the projects for 21, 22, so that the public can go in there and look at them, see a description, see where they're at, contacts for the projects if they have questions on the projects and things like that. It's a pretty neat map they put up there with some pictures. If you guys get a chance, I encourage you to go take a look at that. On page 34, we talk about the investment grade audit. You guys had the presentation from Honeywell just a couple of weeks ago that talked about that. A big part of that audit was for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade project. That is a $9.5 million project. We may get into more detail on that next week when we get into the wastewater portion of things. But just to mention that, we're expecting through that project about an average of about 30% electrical reduction at the facility, and that's huge. That the electrical draw out there is thousands and thousands of dollars. So this project is really going to pay for itself over some time. You see on the right side there's the solar installations. I don't want to talk too much about the rec center. That was Todd's project, not my project, but it's completed, and I hear it's operating well. That was part of the Blue Sky grant. Public Works has 2 projects in design right now. One is out at the landfill for a solar array, and the other one is actually, I shouldn't say under design, is under contract at the Municipal Operations Center, North Campus. If we go over to page 35, on the column with the street improvements, Janine touched on it earlier about Mr. Borstad and the PCI evaluation. Staff's recommending now with Borstad's retirement that we move to a new and really modern system. There's some really neat systems out there now where a truck basically drives the streets. They have they have laser camera arrays that actually photograph the street as they go across, and they can drive the entire town and analyze that. And the cool thing about it is it takes the subjectivity out of it, right? So Mr. Borstad used to literally walk the streets, and if you go look at a crack and I go look at a crack, we may think they're different. The computer systems that they have now, it's all the same across the board. It's programmed in, that's what it is. There's no subjectivity to it. As the city manager mentioned earlier, we do expect as we move to this that we may see our numbers shift a little bit from what Mr. Borstad had because of that subjectivity. We don't know if they're going to be up or down or where they're going to be, but we're excited to move into a new program and get some new software and update everything. As you see, we've had the pavement management paver system since 1988, and it's really outdated, and service is tough to get with the folks. So we're excited to move on and get some really good data moving forward. If we want to move over to page 36, that's where we talk a little bit about the North Laramie development that the city manager had mentioned. The north side tank project is planned to bid in the very near future. That project is a $15.5 million project. We have some WWDC grant money on that and some state revolving fund money on that project. It's a large project with a new tank, transmission lines that run across the north side of town, kind of up by Asphalt Lane area. Also, the sewer outfall up there is a $2.5 million project. It's SRF funded. Will kind of run along a similar alignment and really opens up the area for development with water and sewer capacity in that area. We also have, we're going out to bid this week for the North Campus water main. That will supply water to the new Municipal Operations Center, but also for that surrounding area for future development. And then the Reynolds sewer improvements will also be happening this summer, and that will open up capacity for kind of for that whole basin up in Indian Hills area. They want to do some more building up there, and right now we don't have the capacity. But as we work through this multi-year Reynolds sewer project, that'll really open that up. So over basically through 2025, it's about a $24.5 million investment for future North Laramie development in the water and sewer side of things. And so we're excited about it. There's a lot of vacant land out there that property owners would like to develop into the future, and this will, we think, will really kickstart that and get it going. As we talk about, I may jump around a little bit here because the streets are, you know, between SPT and general fund and capital construction fund. But anyways, the city manager mentioned North Laramie, West Laramie area and what we're doing over there. Just to give you a quick rundown on capital projects, we completed Riverside Avenue last year. That was mill and overlay for the entire section of Riverside. That was a $500,000 project. Wyoming stormwater and street section is a $3.2 million project. It's currently under design, and about another $1 million of water infrastructure with that project also. The Cedar total reconstruction is about $1.35 million and will go under design this year. Ventura Drive will go under design in fiscal year 22. That's another $400,000. And then the Pierce Curtis intersection will go under design in the next year and a half, and that's another $440,000. So with that total investment in West Laramie for mostly street and stormwater and about $1 million worth of water, we're looking at almost $7 million infrastructure from 2020 to 2024 in West Laramie. If we go over to page 38, we talked about West Laramie there. 3rd Street improvements. We completed last year the first phase of that project, which changed out all the valving all along 3rd Street. We can actually now isolate and shut off areas of the downtown, which is very helpful when there's water breaks and issues we have there. So that was phase 1. Phase 2 went out to bid, and you will actually see the phase 2 portion of the project on your city council agenda next week. We're asking to reject that bid. It was $1.5 million over budget. Our piping prices are out of control right now, and we'll touch on that more next week or in 2 weeks when we talk more about water and sewer. But we'll hopefully be able to bid that again later this year as those prices drop down. Anyway, the real driver for 3rd Street is YDOT is coming in 2025 to resurface 3rd Street, and we have some old water lines in there that we would like to basically get changed out before the new asphalt goes on top of it. On page 39, we talked about the traffic signal improvements. As you know, we completed 22nd and Reynolds last year. As far as I'm concerned and what I've seen, that is operating really well. The school district's very happy with what's happening there. We think we've improved the safety for the children at the school with the new crosswalks and the signal there. YDOT is working on the Flint Street and Flint and Third traffic signal, and is really to give access for vehicles and pedestrians across 3rd Street. There's such a long section there where there's really nowhere for pedestrians to cross or traffic to cross safely. So that's at Flint and 3rd, a YDOT project. And then South 3rd Street, we're in the middle, well, I shouldn't say middle design, we're getting close to the end of design down at 3rd Street and what will be the new Bill Nye coming in there where the new Paledna addition is at. We're working on design of that. We're hoping to get that under construction this summer, but not 100% positive on that, but that's what we're shooting for at this time. The Municipal Operations Center, I don't want to get too involved with because I think you're all really familiar with it. It's under construction. They're making good progress. And we're excited to see that project moving forward and hopefully be moving in there about this time next year. So I don't know if City Manager, did you or Malia want to talk about the software and efficiency improvements with the ERP program? I don't know if Malia wanted to touch on that.
Yes, I didn't know if they had any questions with your section or anything. They might want to talk about that first. Mayor.
City Council, do we have any questions for Brooks? I see a hand from Councilor Harrington and then Councilor Gabriel.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have 2 questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
Cool. Thank you. The first is about Ventura Drive. I'm just curious for a little more information. I saw that that's from an old delayed improvement, and I'm curious for just maybe a little bit more information on that project. Sorry, that's question 1. Question 2, Brooks, thanks for outlining I think it's important to remember how much money is spent. When you look at this list, the list may look longer in other parts of Laramie, but the dollar amounts really do add up in West Laramie. And so I appreciate you outlining that part of it as well, because those are big projects. But a smaller project in West Laramie that I was curious if I could get a little bit of feedback from you on. I had a constituent reach out that is sort of abutting one of these stormwater projects. Curious if as the street is repaired, even in the short term, they live, for context, just slightly off of one of the stormwater routes. And so they're curious as those streets are put back together for the short term, if they can get recycled asphalt as well, if that's sort of part of the plan, or if it's going back to dirt in the in-between.
Sure. Councilor Harrington, through you, Vice Mayor. First, Venture Drive is it's basically from Adams to where Wyotech is currently ribbon paving, right? There's no curb, gutter, sidewalk, or anything in there. And we do have some storm drain issues in there that need to be taken care of. We have a delayed improvement agreement with LBCA, and that dates back quite a while. So we want to get that project wrapped up, take care of the storm drain issues there. We all know that area is developing more and more, and Wyotech bought the piece of property across the street. There's a development going in down at the western part of Venture Drive, and so we anticipate more and more traffic being there and more need for that storm drainage that's there. Right now it's ditches. And so that needs to be improved. As far as the storm drainage that will be going in as part of the Wyoming Avenue project, that's it's basically a storm drain main, I guess, or outfall. So that storm drain is going to be, it's kind of the center of it all, right? That's where everything will drain into in the future. This has to be done before we can actually do the pavement portion of the project, right? We got to get all the storm drain stuff in, and it will allow us to move out in the future and do other storm drain projects and other paving projects in the area, because it all ties into that. That's the main line. The areas around the project, the other roads around the project, we'll maintain on the as part of our normal maintenance. And I have Shane Johnson's on the phone. He's our street manager and is in charge of all that maintenance. And if you'd like us to talk a little bit about the maintenance that goes on over in West Laramie, I think he's prepared to do that.
Thank you, Brooks. And if I could just ask one more quick question on that Ventura Drive, Vice Mayor, if that's all right, before we cruise onto the street maintenance part. I'm curious. So the reason I asked Brooks was I saw that there was a delayed improvement with the chamber, but was also aware of Wyotech purchasing that other lot, and I thought probably the improvement would be that curb and gutter, and I was curious how much of that would actually. I know we're spending $400,000 on it, give or take. Would any of that be paid as they develop that lot if we were to not do that project? Is I guess the most blunt way to ask that question as part of like their platting process.
Sure. Yeah, Councilor Harrington, through you, Vice Mayor. I actually had that same question, and so that lot is actually on the westerly portion of Ventura Drive that is already completed, right? The curb, the gutter, the drainage is already there. So no, it's not part of that. It wouldn't be part of that development. That part of Ventura Drive is already developed.
Thanks, Brooks. I feel smart knowing that you had the same question. That makes me feel just a little smarter. Thanks.
Okay, Councilor Gabriel.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I think I know the answer to these two questions I'm asking Brooks concerning a couple of streets that are in bad shape. 9th Street north of Harney along Labarney Park, and Ivinson 9th to 12th. Any status change on those two?
Yeah, Councilor Gabriel, through you, Vice Mayor. 9th Street there north of Harney, that's our 9th Street Phase 2 project. We're going out for design on that project very soon, probably within the next month or two. And that is I think it's from Harney to Shields through there. That is a fiscal year 22 project. So that'll be under construction next summer, not this coming summer, but the following. And the other one was Ivinson.
9th to 12th.
Yeah. So we do have Ivinson 9th to 12th. I think we have it actually 9th to 15th in the budget. It's kind of in the out years because we're having to do that along with water, sewer. It's not just the street. I mean, that's going to be a huge project that we have to do through there. And in our out year budget, and I want to say I think it's 6 or 7 years. We're starting that work. Some of that preliminary stuff has already been done, but it's coming. It's a few years out, and the main reason is because it's going to be a huge project: water, sewer, storm drains, and street, curb, gutter. I mean, it's a big project through there. So we're planning for it, but it is a few years out.
And then if I could just follow up one quick one on Ivinson Brooks, just curious because the street is falling apart right now. If anybody's driven, I mean, we've got some really bad situations on that. Is there any plan to do some kind of temporary fix on that?
Other than through our normal maintenance, at this point, no. I mean, it's like I said, the big projects in the out years, we wouldn't want to go in right now and do like a mill and overlay or something like that, and then go back in 2-3 years and tear it up. So we'll handle, you know, potholing and things like that through our normal maintenance. But until the bigger project comes along, we're not going to be, we're not planning on a major investment there at this point.
City Manager?
Jump in. Councilor Gabriel, I agree with you. Ivinson's a huge concern. As you know, we've had, it was planned for reconstruction, I think in 2011, maybe 10. But we had to delay that because of the construction of the new business building. And what we've seen pretty much every year, or at least every biennium since then, is a new plan from the university for construction that would impact that road. Part of the reason that it's in such a severely deteriorated state right now is from the heavy traffic from the new business building being built now, 8-9 years ago. And then it continues to kind of be beat to death by heavy equipment as the university has been constructing new buildings and improving other buildings on campus. So while I agree with you that it's really terrible, as Brooke said, we have a project that will get to it eventually, but I would add that I think that we need to be cognizant of the timing of it, because if we do construction there, for instance, at the same time that they may be doing demolition of the doors, we could put pavement down and find it become unduly deteriorated and too quickly. So we'll want to be really strategic with the university about the timing of fixing that road. So we don't want to fix it right before they come in and put a lot of wear and tear on it, if that makes sense. Thanks.
I think COO, maybe Brown wants to have a comment?
Yes, Vice Mayor, I just wanted to add that, one of the reasons for this was the Sea Line project, and we started down on 2nd Street, and you have to phase your sewer project, and so you can't do the sewer at Ivinson. So we're in the 2nd phase, and Eric and Brooks might want to join in. We finished the 1st phase. We're on a 2nd phase of Sea Line. The 3rd phase will be at the Ivinson. And so that is one of the things, we can't jump the sewer line. And that is why Ivinson pavement is in the later years, because once again, your sewer line would be, it couldn't really hook up the way it's being done.
Thank you. Councilor O'Doherty.
I love that our chief operating officer knows so much about sewer lines. It's just great. My question is about the 15th Street reconstruction, and I'm wondering who the partner MRG is. And I'm hoping we get our street back, because I see signs saying it's going to be closed from Grand to Harney. That's probably another topic for another time, but who's MRG? Thanks.
Councilor Doherty, that's mineral royalties grant. We received, I think it was $195,000 of mineral royalty funding for that project.
Thank you, and I'll try not to ask that every meeting. Thanks.
Vice Mayor, I would add as well with 15th Street, Brooks and myself and the chiefs and our engineering division have talked a lot about the project occurring on 15th Street this summer. I would let you know that Engineering Division and Public Works have worked really closely with the university to phase the street closure of 15th to get through the summer without having the entire stretch of 15th closed from maybe Harney to Grand or from Willett to Grand. So as I understand it, we'll have kind of rolling closures north to south. But I also want to tell you that the city is a partner on that project, and if Brooks wants to give you more detail, I'm sure that would be appreciated by you. But while the university is needing to do some underground infrastructure work in that street, the city also is doing some infrastructure work while we have it torn up. So it's going to be a huge undertaking this summer, and they've done everything they can to minimize the closure of the roadway. because as we all know, it's a really serious issue as far as our public safety responses and our ability to move quickly through the community and serve people with ambulance, fire, and police services. Brooks, do you want to talk a little bit about what our work in 15th Street is, complementary to what the university is doing?
Sure. So the university's doing all their infrastructure work up there on 15th Street, and we partnered with them to do some upsizing of the pipe, and then also adding an additional couple blocks of water line work that we needed for fire flows and replacement of old pipe. So that the university, their projects really kind of from between Grand and not all the way to Harney, but I think it's I want to say to Gibbon. That's their project, but we did partner with them, and you'll actually be seeing an agreement come forward very soon on that for us to partner with them to do some work that helps the university, but also helps our residents in the area. The 15th Street project that we note with the MRG in our budget is actually on the other side of Grand, from Grand to Sheridan. And unfortunately this summer that these two projects are going to be kind of happening at the same time. And so 15th Street is going to be a bit of a mess. Between Grand and Sheridan, the portion that we're doing, it's failing through there. A lot of it is because of the heavy bus traffic from the university school district, and the university and the school district actually both supplied letters of support for us when we went to the State Lands and Investment Board to ask for the MRG funds. So the project that you see in your book is the Grand to Sheridan portion, the reconstruction of that area.
Yeah,
Thank you.
One last comment. When you think of 15th and the intersection of 15th and Ivinson, going back to Councilor Gabriel's question, we do have infrastructure in Ivinson as well. And as you know, that infrastructure in Ivinson and that street project needs to be timed with the work we're doing in 15th, but also bear in mind the university's planning, as I believe, to start construction on this new parking garage on Ivinson, between Ivinson and Grand Avenue at roughly, I think it must be the 1100 to 1300 block where the old Ivinson Hospital used to be. So yet another reason, while as terrible as Ivinson is right now, it's probably not the best time for us to go put a shiny pavement surface down right before they bring in a lot of heavy equipment.
Okay, do I have any other questions at this time by council members or comments? Do we want to hear from Shane Johnson regarding his input on this topic?
Vice Mayor, I would just add, for the sake of brevity, if you don't mind, I'm not sure that my question would warrant the discussion of maintenance. I think I would just say that folks out there really do appreciate the recycled asphalt. So as often as we can use that, I think it's appreciated by the folks that live out there.
Okay, great. So Janine, I guess you're up on the next section, right? Ron? Yes?
I'll wrap up the discussion that Brooks provided, sort of focusing on that north and West Laramie focus areas, just by mentioning too, I was sitting here adding this up. Our demand for development on the north and the eastern part of the community over the last few years has been significant. I asked planning to send me a list of all of the prospective and current applications for development that they were aware of. And it's pretty remarkable, but I'll just share with you to sort of justify the $25 million investment we're making on the north and east sides of our existing municipal border. That right now, and give me a little bit of flex room on my math because these aren't precise numbers, but right now we have, I believe, active an application for 157 lots that would be residential and LR. And then there are another say, roughly 260 potential lots that could be applied for at the time that we can serve them with water and sewer. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 prospective development applications that we've talked with folks about in the last 2 summers that were not submitted because we didn't have adequate sewer or water capacity to serve them. So those folks are waiting in queue until we can have those services come forward. The reason I wanted to focus on that a little bit and give you some numbers is that, Council, as you know, we have a really serious housing issue in our town. I was on the phone today, yet again, having the same conversation with the director of the Laramie Chamber Business Alliance about housing demand and how it affects the ability of this community to recruit either, gig or independent kind of workers who are going to work remotely in a new post-COVID economy, as well as bricks and mortar kinds of employees that businesses that develop or move to Laramie might come and provide opportunity for individuals to work in bricks and mortar locations. And housing availability is a real big issue. So I think with this significant investment we've been queuing up and we're ready to really start breaking ground on this year, it's really exciting. And I think it's going to open up some important housing opportunities. And then the resulting sort of residual benefit of that, I think, is going to be some growth that is going to reflect pent-up demand that we've had for years. So it's pretty exciting, but I know it's a lot of money, so I want to give some perspective to $25 million, and hopefully if we build it, they're going to come. With that, Malia can certainly talk about our efficiency investments, and I want to set this up a little just to tell you, a couple years ago, we realized, if you look at the city's budget, it really hasn't changed. Your general fund budget, not capital, I'm talking more broadly, everything. It really hasn't changed in about 10, 15 years. It hovers around $28 to $30 million in any given year. So what we know is that our ability to fund construction projects, to do improvements in infrastructure, and also just to conduct general operations, our cost of doing that business grows every year, but our revenue availability for doing it doesn't. So we queued up this notion of we're going to invest in technology and we're going to invest in things that help us to be more efficient and do more business in better time, or do more construction with the same amount of money. And so that's been a focus area in our capital budget as well as our O&M budget for a number of years. And Malia is going to talk to you about really probably the most notable efficiency investment that we're going to make. And this is in infrastructure that is the backbone, so to speak, of our city operations, which is our internal software system.
So, Council, tonight on where we're at on this project, our main modules and software are over 20 years old, and a lot of the software is not in its manual. So a lot of our processes are very manual. So I have gone through, if you go to page 40, it kind of outlines where we're at on this project, and I have done the RFPs for the project. I guess I'll go over some of the project. This energy efficiency or inter-source resource planning is modules. We're looking at finance module, HR personnel, utility billing. We're looking at community, and but within those modules, just for example, the finance module, if you go down there, it's modules within a module. You have general ledger and cash receipting and P cards and accounts payable, accounts receivable. We have contracts and bidding. We have grant reporting. We have project tracking, work orders, capital assets. And that's not all of it. I'm just giving you a sample of what it means to roll out an ERP. It's not a simple little software. We're doing it for the entire organization. AP is used everywhere. People are using purchasing everywhere. So it becomes a little more difficult than just doing your own department. So we're at the point where we had finished mapping our processes because we wanted the processes to be what processes we wanted to be, not our current processes. We went out for RFP in February. We got proposals back. We're now looking at the proposals. There's The team, we've scored them. We're going to probably pick 2 vendors for software demos, and that's going out next week. We will set 3-day software demos with the 2 companies where they'll go through a script that we have created of things that we want them to demo so we understand it. We're looking at the main functions of HR, payroll, timekeeping, and the finance information on those 3 days. We're then going to set up another day for utility billing and community. And so we're at that point in the software vendor due diligence list. And when we get through these demos, which will probably, when you look at it, will be at the end of June, then the team will really decide on what vendor we're going to propose to council. We'll look at doing more, maybe information seeking and looking at contracts and things like that. And I'm planning to take this in early fall to council for approval of this long year of trying to get the software in place, but that's where we're at. And so, this is a phased implementation. This is not something you just do overnight. You have to, when you choose the software, you have to, you're going to have to look at implementation time. You have full-time people working. So, we're asking in this project to have Coa Hills continue to help us because they can maybe do some of the project management because we have, Jennifer Wade, who's trying to run finance, do the budget book, and then have to be in finance and do some of the stuff in general ledger. I may have to be in purchasing. We may have to pull some things together to try to get this done. So we're asking for some resources to help us with this implementation. And you don't know what the vendors are going to offer also. So you have to convert the data over from our data. All the data has to be converted over. So it's a big task to do, but I think at the end of this, there's going to be so many efficiencies when we did the mapping of just things like employee portals or vendor portals, or even, you can do work orders where you can route an item around and people don't have to, it just is in your inbox and you do what you need to do for, let's say, plan reviews. So there's a lot of things that it's going to be efficient at, and I believe that it will have a long-term effect, but it's going to be a 3 to 5 year project. It's not going to be a 1-year project. This is going to go on for a while to try to implement all the software and all the modules. So that's where we're at. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Okay, council members, do we have any questions? I don't see any hands raised. So I think we can keep moving. Okay. Yes. Okay.
Thanks, Malia, for describing that. Council, I'll let you know the software replacement is probably an investment that will last the city some 20 years, like our last software replacement. And if I am not incorrect on this, I have to thank Malia for spearheading this effort. It is a tremendous undertaking, and I honestly think she joined the city either right before or right at the end of the last software replacement.
I did the software. Yeah, I headed the software replacement. So when I started, the software was so poor. It was the first thing I did is put in new software. So yeah, this is my second round.
So to do that twice in one career is very notable. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Council, before we go to the Recreation Center and Assistant City Manager Feeser and his crew, I wanted to just quickly touch on pages 42 and 43. This was a small element of our capital investment plan, looking at our fleet and vehicle replacements. But the reason I wanted to just take a second here is I know that it is probably of interest to you all in terms of the carbon reduction add-ons that we have been doing for the last 2 years at your direction. So as I look at the top of page 42, this is where you see the total of all vehicle and equipment. This is major vehicle and equipment replacement. In total for fiscal 22, starting in July through fiscal 25, we're planning a $3 million investment in this area. That may seem like a lot. I will tell you, we've delayed in the past 2 or 3 budget cycles replacing some needed equipment and kind of eked out some extra years as best we could on that. So there is a little bit of pent-up need here that we'll address in the next couple of years with that $3 million planned expenditure. And that's for vehicles and for fleet. So now we're going to scroll down to the bottom of page 42, and this next chart is vehicles only. And you see that chart starting at the bottom of 42 and continuing to the top of page 43. And what I wanted to draw your attention to was the budget team and our fleet management folks in the street department, Shane Johnson and Brooks Webb, and our fleet manager have been calculating the total investment over 4 years and then showing what percent or what portion of that total investment is coming to offset carbon reductions or add-ons to vehicles in that area. And then we're also calculating the estimated savings from repurposing vehicles. So you'll see here that for vehicles, we have an $832,771 planned expenditure with $96,000 from carbon reducing add-ons, and the estimated savings from repurposing vehicles at $161,000. And then if you look at the next chart, now it shows equipment separate from the vehicles with at the bottom of that chart, the same metrics provided to you. So our total equipment replacement over 4 years would be $2.2399 million, and the carbon reducing add-ons amounted to $67,500. So I hope that's fairly self-explanatory. If it's not, we have those folks still on the line. They could answer any detailed questions that you might have. And if not, then we'll move to Recreation Center. So Todd, get ready off your mute button.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Can everybody hear me all right? Okay. The Recreation Center under the capital plan has very, very few applications over the next year that are going to be significant. However, they are all impactful. As you note, first off, we've been doing pool boiler replacements, and this is the last pool boiler replacement that we'll have to do for hopefully 10 to 15 years. And this is for the outdoor pool boiler, which gets used the least. We did apply this year for an ACRB grant in the amount of $35,000. We hope to match that with $5,000 to be able to do the pool boiler for about $40,000. We did anticipate that it could potentially be a little bit more than the last time, which the last boiler was about $33,000 due to the increase in prices that we've seen. But this is a nice project because the city's investment funds is about $5,000 matched with $35,000 in grant funds. The pool natatorium RTU replacement, which you're going to be considering next week at City Council, the Rec Center has 8 RTUs. They've got 6 that are on the building portion and 2 that are on the pool portion. The 2 on the pool portion, number 7 and 8, you know, they have a harsh climate they deal with. They deal with high humidity air that they bring in. They recycle a lot. They move a lot more air because the air transference in pools is higher because you want to keep the humidity out to protect your building from having issues. Whether it fails cinder block or creates mold or grows mildew, whatever it does, you do whatever you can to keep that pool moving. We had originally had an estimate from about 2 years ago of $200,000 for that pool boiler replacement, the first one, RTU 7, which works the hardest in the leisure pool. And this year we opened up bids and the low bid was $352,000. So we missed that one by a little bit over 75%. And really it comes down to the supply and demand due to the coronavirus and what it's caused in HVAC units. The unit itself is going to be built specifically for the rec center, and it's got a 32-week lead time before we'll even see the unit come in. So that's what we're looking at on RTUs. Now these 2 RTUs are exceptional. They're large, they're specific, they're important. So we do hope that we see much decreased prices on the ones that are pretty standard in our building. The next one that you have before you is the family-friendly workout area. Through the work to implement to improve the response to COVID and to help keep staff safe, we've incorporated the existing indoor playground, which was severely underused, two staff offices and made changes. Our plan is to reutilize that equipment that was in the playground and move it out into the recreation center proper and do some additions with some climbing apparatus that is built specifically for children to try to create more of an indoor fun playground environment where mom and dad could be working out, but they could be watching the kids as they play on the equipment in the area. So we're really hoping that that turns out. That one, again, we did apply for an ACRB grant of $60,000. It was reduced to $40,000, so we're asking for $20,000 additional if we're approved in June of that grant. And then the last two items that are further out in the fiscal years are the replacement of RTUs that are part of the building RTUs. And we'll know more as we move through the system if those prices are valued, but we'll be looking at those as we go through the next budget amendments and making adjustments to those as we go. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Hey, council members, do we have any questions? I'm looking for hands raised here. Let's start with Councilor Stalder, please.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Fuser, do you think that family-friendly workout area will help increase memberships or revenue at all?
Honorable Mayor, through you to Councilor Stalder, I do believe that it will help give us more for people to do. You know, we struggle with a facility that is sometimes highly sought after for programming, and when you do programming, you don't have a lot of drop-in. And I think this will add to the drop-in availability, so I do believe that it will add to the desire to be up at the rec center.
Cool. I thought so too. It sounds like a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
So do we have any other questions? I don't see any. So Janine?
Okay. Thank you, Vice Mayor. So we are moving now to page 71, and we'll have various staff talking through projects in this section. This is our major capital construction fund, and I mentioned early in the presentation that this is the major fund where we track big projects that span multiple years. As you look at page 71, this is the high-level roll-up, as I call it, where you see just a summary of everything recommended for funding in this fund in the upcoming fiscal year. Apologies while I get to the right page in front of me. I would like to start off by talking just quickly about the biggest number on this page, which Brooks already touched on a little bit, but that, of course, is the Municipal Operations Center North Campus. And, of course, that's a city campus. We call City Hall in the annex here, excuse me, our main campus. And I'm sure that's just some artifact of being a university town. But this new facility on the north side of town will be our new North Campus. I wanted to give you a little bit of information because I did recently field a public question, and I suspect that there might be folks of the public who would like this information. So if you indulge me for just a second, I want to talk about this project. It's a huge expenditure, but what I want to really draw your attention to, Council, is that we've been planning this project for decades, almost, seems like forever. The city knew in the late 90s that we needed to consolidate and improve, excuse me, our public works facilities that are currently located on North 4th Street. Some of those buildings are 40, and we even have a building up there that is almost 80 years old, if you can believe that. So they're clearly in need of this improvement. This will be a 40-year investment, at least, for this community. Brooks has given you a lot of detail about the project, but the thing I wanted to share with you and the public to answer that question is that we have spent years sort of pulling together grant funding and various funding mechanisms to support this project. It's not an easy thing for a city of our sort of meager means to pull off a project like this and make an investment that's going to be 40, 50 years into the future. When you look at the amount of funding that went into this project, I just want to share with you that we have grant funding, we also have an interfund loan, and the total estimated contribution out of this $20-some million by the taxpayer, so to speak, through general tax-based revenue is only $3.325 million. So I hope that kind of frames it a little bit, and I wanted to spend the time to look at that because it is such a significant investment for the community, and we certainly have needs in a ton of other areas. but we've done everything we can to keep this reasonably away from spending taxpayer monies that could go to other also very needed services. You can see that the total amount that we're planning to spend out of the Capital Construction Fund is $33,965,791. 21.5 of that being for the Municipal Operations Center. So really, the remainder of that expenditure is about $12–13 million outside of the Municipal Operations Center North Campus project. The other notable project in this fund this year, Malia has already discussed for you, and that's our citywide enterprise resource software upgrade at $2.5 million. And then the other notable project in here is our Usac street project, which would be Corcel to Bill Nye, and that is about $3.5 million. So here's your high-level overview, and I thought we would go through quickly each of these projects in a little bit more detail. We'll focus on ones that are maybe more important and spend less time on those that are not, if you don't have any questions on the high-level view here. Okay. Looks like none. So we'll move to page 74. And these are the detail pages that show more detail for each of the projects listed in that higher level rollout. At the top of page 74 is the citywide enterprise resource software, which we've already talked about. But if you look at the second half of that page, I just wanted to mention for council's edification, there's a complementary capital project management and budgeting software package that's being recommended in this fund for upcoming fiscal 23. That will be complementary to our ERP software upgrade and sorely needed, frankly. When you are looking tonight at these capital construction plans that we have, I think you appreciate the scope of it in terms of the amount of money spent and the logistical planning, the tremendous amount that must go into getting ready and then executing these projects, and this software will be really integral to helping us to manage those projects more effectively in-house. As we move then to page 75, at the top of that page, you'll see a project planned in this year, which is the Fire Station 1 Dormitory remodel. I think a lot of you have been over to Station 1. That's our station here next to City Hall. It is our oldest station, probably one of the older buildings in town, frankly, and the dormitory there is pretty circa 1972 probably, and definitely could use a little bit of an upgrade. So we are planning to make some improvements to the living quarters next door to make it just more useful for our staff when they're in that facility to be effective in their work and to get training done and those kinds of things. We don't have the chief with us tonight to answer any specific questions, but if you have any, I'd be happy, and I can't answer them, or someone else on the call can't answer them, I'd be happy to get an answer for our next meeting. Moving down to the next section on that page, we have also planned in fiscal 21, $93,981. That's the Sierra Sky Tech Park Trail amenities. Todd Fieser could answer any questions, but I think it's fairly self-explanatory. We've put in the trail. It's heavily used up there. I don't know how many of you get up there, but I get up there frequently, and there is a lot of usage. We need some garbage cans. We need some signs. We need some dog waste dispensers, just practical items that will help that trail to be maintained better and make it easier for folks to use. Moving then, and I'll go ahead and take questions at the end. Moving then to the next page, at the top of page 76, there's the Municipal Operations Center. We've talked about that enough tonight. I'll skip past that and move to the second item on that page, which is Harney Street enhancement. 15,000 scheduled in this year, and if you wouldn't mind, Todd, maybe I'll let you kind of talk through this. I know that you've been working on this project.
Get in unmuted. The Harney Street enhancements, I don't believe that is catching, it's approved by. Oh, it's labeled Harney Street, but it's Snowy Range Road. And so, yeah, I'm sorry, it took me a second to catch up with where we were, but there's multiple features that we're working on in that situation. A couple of those are led out of engineering, which include pedestrian railing along the path and that'll be led through engineering. I'm working and have been working on the art installations, which the first one happened in March. The next one actually happens, I believe, next Monday. And we'll have that ongoing art installations. And then I've been working on the fencing, and engineering's working on the solar LED street lights. We did get held up because purchases were held off due to the COVID freeze, but we are starting to get those projects rolling again and hope to have a lot of them finished up by the end of this year.
Thanks, Todd. And boy, that did catch you off guard, didn't it? Harney Street Enhancements is the name that we made for this project like 6 years ago. And it persists even though we know now that WYDOT has deemed the Harney Street Bridge to be the Snowy Range Gateway Bridge or some such thing. So. Okay, so if we move to the next page, 77, at the top of that page is a project that we're wrapping up. It's just showing here because it's, if not done, it's just in the final little bits of improvement. That's Spring Creek, Gabion Riprap. I'll focus on the second project on this page. This is our next planned Usac street project. This is the extension of Bill Nye from its current ending point at Boulder Drive to the west to Corcel. I think we're going to get underway this year as far as seeing some work. Certainly, we're planning expenditures beginning this year and through fiscal 25. This is a USAC funded project. WYDOT will conduct the work, but the city is a strong partner, not only in terms of contributing money to this project and doing some associated infrastructure, water and wastewater work with it, but we are also obviously contributing money to the utility as well as the street project according to the USAC percentages. I think everyone's familiar with the project. Brooks, do you want to add anything to my quick overview? Did I miss any key elements?
No, I think you're good.
Okay. Council, I think this entire project is really exciting, right? Because Bill Nye Avenue running from the east to the west will really, when completed, we hope that it will go all the way to 3rd Street, but it will be a parallel east-west large throughway through the community that should take some of the pressure off Grand Avenue. So we're really excited to have this. And of course, it's also opening up the Turner Tract area more fully for development out there. Moving to the next page, at the top of the page, this project isn't slated to begin until fiscal 22. We talked about it a little bit earlier as well. That's Ventura Drive. So I thought I would move to the bottom of page 78. We also touched briefly on our storm and street rehabilitation project tied to the C2, phase 2 for the sewer line. And you'll see we are extending money for this in 21 for some planning, with construction beginning a few years out. Moving to the next page, we have traffic control starting this upcoming year, $390,000 planned for 3rd and Bill Nye. Traffic control, we'll be coordinating with WYDOT, of course, on that project because 3rd Street is their street. And I'm going to skip the next project because it doesn't start until fiscal 23. We'll go to the top of page 80, looking at our chip spill program for the upcoming year with $368,000 planned in fiscal 21 and $86,000 in fiscal 22. If you have any questions, there's an outline there of all of the projects. Brooks talked about these earlier. If you thought of anything else, feel free to jump in. Okay, project management document updates is the second project there. The engineering folks or public works folks can talk a little bit more about this, but this has been an ongoing project for a number of years, jumping off of our other engineering specification manuals, and this would be, I believe, the final phase of getting standard details for public works projects in the city of Laramie. If I'm wrong, Brooks will correct me, or maybe one of the engineers. But this is a big undertaking. It'll be very helpful for folks who are developing in the community to understand what the specifications are for public works infrastructure. And that concludes all of the fiscal 21 projects. As you continue on the ensuing pages, you'll see projects planned in out years, so 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 years out. But my intention was not to cover those tonight and just to focus on projects being funded for the upcoming year.
Okay, great.
So I think
Thank you.
that concludes what we hope to get through tonight. And I was hoping to get us out of this and back into your special meeting by 8. I mean, it looks like we have about 15 minutes. So Vice Mayor, I'll look to you for leadership on how you want to proceed. If you want us to continue, you want to take questions, or you want to wrap it up and go forward with this special meeting.
Thank you. I think we'll go to questions right now, and let's maybe start with Malia. And I see Councilor Cumby has her hand up as well, but we'll transfer over to our COO, Malia Brown.
Vice Mayor, this is not a question. I just wanted to do kind of an informative announcement in that, you know, with this first work session, we're going to be sending out once again for the council if they want to make amendments on capital projects, because it's harder to try to find money or move money around. We'll be making those forms to go out to you. If you need our help, please call Jennifer Wade or myself if you have some things that you would like to do. We're going to have the special meeting in the beginning of May for any amendments that you want. We're going to do it just like we've done in past years, where the capital separate from the operating. So just wanted to tell you that, and I didn't hook up with Janine today, so sorry, Janine, but I forgot to tell her about that. So I just wanted to tell you that that's going on, and if you have anything you would like to change, please let us know.
Great, thank you. I think Councilor Cumby probably will really appreciate that news. She might not be aware of our procedures on that. So.
And if you don't have any amendments, you don't have to worry about anything. Just, you know, it's just only if you have some changes or recommendations. Thank you.
Perfect.
Me.
Thanks.
Point of information, could Malia repeat that date that she wanted the changes by?
We will send out a memo next week, but it will be probably a week before, 2 weeks, maybe. Jen, remember to go look at the date, but we will send out a memo for the date and whatever, but it's you're going to have some time because we have a couple weeks before our next capital meeting. It'll probably be around there, so we get the forms back so that we do our special meeting in May. I just wanted you to start thinking about it if you are having changes or whatever, and like I said, we can help you with the form, we can help you with the motions. We've done that in the past, so.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, just as a reminder, to have that, spend some time consulting with staff on particular issues and questions that you do have, because this is basically a very quick overview, and they have far more detailed information ready at their hands. So with that, I think we'll just move to Councilor Cumby.
I had a brief question on the Station 1 dorm remodel. And does that remodel include their sleeping area as well as the living and other area?
Through you, Vice Mayor, Councilor Cumby, that is correct. Yes, they will be updating the sleeping quarters, and I believe also the sort of rec room area that doubles as a training room for them, and then also some kiosk workstations so they can complete training and those sorts of things. Oh, and we have Dan Johnson there. Hi, Dan.
Hi.
I thought I was standing in for you. I didn't realize you were here. Yeah, Dan's going to give you so much better information.
It's from the dorm rooms is what it is. It's from that wall back that goes, it's like halfway back in the living quarter area. So it's just all the living quarters. And that'll be just repurposing that space. The space was developed in the 70s, as Janine said earlier. And we'll make better use of the space. And the walls will actually go clear to the ceiling. And hopefully we can update it. But that's where it is. So,
thank you, Chief Johnson.
Okay.
It certainly needs it.
Yes.
I'm glad to see this appropriated.
Yeah, I think we're going to get rid of that brown fake wood pedaling from 1972.
Not soon enough.
So do we have any other questions? Okay, so as long as we're on track and as long as we have an executive session tonight as well, I'm thinking we keep on just kind of moving through our meeting as long as we've fulfilled Janine's goal for this evening, city manager's goal for this evening. Unless there are any objections by other council members, I'd be happy to do an informal yay, nay, you know, for the whole council, but that's my feeling. I got a thumbs up, a couple of head nods. Okay, so we'll just.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, great. So, City Manager Jordan, do you have anything else to add before we move on to item 2C, City Council updates and comments?
No, I don't, Mayor. Thank you. I'll just remind you all, we will come back on April 27th for our second capital budget work session. And then our overflow date is the following day, which would be a Wednesday, April 28th. If we need that time, we'll take that time. And then that'll be the last two meetings on capital budget. And then Malia said we'll get you a memo telling you how to amend.
Perfect. I so appreciate everybody's hard work on this. And truly, it's, you know, as important as this is, I honestly, it's my favorite time of the year to be on city council, to really, you know, look at those priorities and look at the plans that we've made and the things that we can do, and frankly, you know, what we've accomplished. So these are good, important things to discuss. So with that, let's move on to city council updates. We'll do updates first and then comments. And I see a volunteer. I see Councilor Harrington with his hand up.
Thank you, Councilor Pierce. As Todd stated, the Public Art Coalition will be working with the artist to install the west side sculpture pad on the Harney Street Bridge this coming week. The Planning Commission met last night. They approved the recommendation to us for the final plat of the 3rd Street Partners development down on South 3rd, where you're seeing dirt moving and things like that. Their final plat was before the commission last night. And then they also approved a conditional use permit for a preschool at basically 15th and Canby at the First Baptist Church there. So that is all I have for updates. If anybody has any questions, they're certainly welcome to reach out to me about them.
Great, thank you. Councilor Cumby, do you have any updates for us?
Oh, I have no updates at this time.
Thank you. Councilor Gabriel, do you have an update?
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. I would like to talk about the Casper Aquifer Protection Plan Working Group, and I'll do that in just a moment. But first off, Tourism Board did not meet last month due to a lack of a quorum. Assistant City Manager Fieser has called off tomorrow's Park and Rec Board meeting because there's no really pressing items to talk about. So we've postponed that until our May meeting, second Wednesday for the Parks and Rec Board. We've been meeting as a 4-person group, Councilors O'Doherty, myself, and Cumby, along with Commissioner Sue Ibarra, on this working group for the Casper Aquifer Protection Plan. And I think we've met 4 times. Today, I decided to call our water specialist, Darren Parkin, to see what we need to do to kind of get this moving a little bit, because we've been talking, we've seen presentations from Darren about the aquifer that all the city council has seen. And so I wanted to see if we could get something moving. We need to update our cap. And right now, it looks like everybody's on board to do something. And so I asked Darren if it would be a possibility, or if he didn't have any objection for me to contact our city attorney Southard and see if we could get the 2 city and county attorney together to discuss how we could come together on some kind of RFQ for the cap. And he suggested that we get County Attorney, Commissioner Ibarra himself, together to see if an agreement could be put together that would be brought before both bodies for approval. And so I just did that late this afternoon. I sent out a couple of emails to the counselors, and so I just kind of apologize that I didn't have an opportunity to talk to them beforehand, but this just all came together. We were phone tagged today with Darren, so I didn't get in touch with him till late. And then City Attorney Southard called me back and said, why don't we try and get something together with the county? This is going to take, a long time, we think, or take some time. So the preliminary steps, we wanted to kind of get started and see if we can't form some kind of an agreement between the county to get the cap review underway. So that's certainly on the table, and we'll see where it goes. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Councilor O'Doherty.
The EAC met last week, and we had some good presentations from some student groups ranging from Mrs. Oman's third grade gifted and talented class from Spring Creek. They're really concerned about trash in town. And instead of just complaining, they had a lot of good ideas, like asking for some fencing to help keep the trash from blowing. They're also willing to do some cleanup, and we're going to help organize volunteers. But they're concerned about the effects on the ecosystem, and they really think it's not really helping our town, the appearance, especially as you come into town on Grand. I think all the councilors got their letter, so it was good to hear from them, because they had they were brainstorming and maybe try to get some public information, like if the kids are telling people, be careful with your trash, or making posters and things like that. We also heard from a couple student groups, sustainability classes, and they had some excellent ideas for how we could promote solar and things like that, like grant programs that are available and loan programs, promote it among citizens for them to help incentivize. So I encourage you to look at it was a really long meeting, and I encourage you to look at the agenda, because those reports are in there, and I think it'll be helpful. We talked about the cap, and one member of EAC will be working on that, but this county has issues they would like EAC to look at too. So that's that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilor Schuster.
Thank you. Only one update. Wyoming Territorial Park Board met. They discussed a lot of good ideas. They have a calendar of events, including some car shows and other things that will be on actual property, not just in the parking lot. And they're looking for more groups to want to have events, but not in the parking lot, because they need the parking lot for people to attend, because everybody wants to use the parking lot but not go inside. So we are also hopeful for this summer to install a second sanitary dump, because you'll always see all of the trailers in line trying to use that, and they're going to make it so it'll be a credit card scan unit instead of just trying to get people to put it in the honor box. So that's the only group that's met since in the last 2 weeks, and I gave my last update. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilor Stalder.
Thank you. I will say, to Councilor O'Doherty's point, we're doing a great job of educating our kiddos. Whenever we go to Walmart, it takes me about 15 minutes to walk in, because we're picking up all the trash in the parking lot. My kid says every day is Earth Day. So my only update is from the LEPC, the Local Emergency Planning Committee. We had our first meeting since they're only quarterly, and I'm just very impressed with our county's emergency response. They highlighted not cool, but the response was cool. The incident was in October of last year, where The top blew off of a train car carrying radioactive material, and there were no lingering effects from that, but I was just really impressed by the response from our fire department and all of our emergency agencies. That meeting was on the 5th, and at that time, Public Health had given 13,000 first dose COVID shots, and then 6,000 second dose vaccinations. So that was the 5th. I'm sure the numbers are quite a bit higher now. That's it.
Great, thank you. Councilor Somerville.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just a couple of quick updates. The downtown board has met, and they're looking at survey data that they've collected from their businesses about their impacts of COVID and new services, really focusing on how to help the businesses continue their online services and portals. There seems to be quite a bit of demand, and they anticipate that that demand will continue even after the pandemic wanes. They also talked again about support for the open container permit for the summer and for the Hollyhock Commons kind of pop-up area. I think that'll be in front of council here soon, and we had a work session on that a couple of weeks ago. And then the Albany County Recreation Board met and went over all of the initial grant applications that were submitted by the city, the school board, and the county. It's the first time I've ever attended one of those meetings, and the board members had a lot of good questions about whether the people applying for grants were getting supplies locally. And really they did a good job of kind of drilling down a little bit more on the applications, and I certainly appreciated that. They'll meet again here in a few weeks to look at approving those grants or moving stuff around. And with that, that's all the updates I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I will update the Monolith Ranch committee met last week, and we received a presentation by Jared Allen, who is a warning conditions meteorologist from the National Weather Service, and he provided information related to the Mullen Fire. And it was really, really interesting. And I'm hoping that PowerPoint gets forwarded to all of council so they can peruse through that. But it was, according to Mr. Allen's presentation, probably the largest event in modern history for Southeast Wyoming, or for this area. It included 176,878 acres. And I learned about soil being nuked, which means nothing can grow and it really makes water move fast. So it'll be interesting to see, if we have upcoming weather events, how much impact we'll end up having in the Laramie River. I mean, that's our big concern, that we will have runoff ending up in the Laramie River, mostly looking at Fox Creek and Bear Creek watersheds. And like I said, it was an interesting presentation, and hopefully we'll get that out to all council members. The other thing he mentioned was the drought occurring in South Dakota. They're already having wildfires. So really interesting weather events in our area lately. The other thing is the Go Forth Reservoir is operational. It's about 2/3 full, and or 2/3 full of ducks. Many different varieties of ducks, and they're having folks go out and count the different types of birds. So that's really interesting, and they're planning to watch and monitor all the different kind of ducks that are heading through our area. So I think that's great, and I don't have any comments. So let's go to Councilor Somerville to see if she has any comments.
I do not, Vice Mayor. Thank you.
Councilor Stalder, do you have any comments? Councilor Schuster?
No.
Counselor O'Doherty? Harrington? Counselor Gabriel, any comments? And Counselor Cumbie, any comments?
No comments.
Great, thanks. So let's hop on to our agenda review. Give me a minute here to pull it up and we'll go through that. Okay, so let's look at the consent agenda to start with. Do we have any questions related to items on the consent agenda? Has everybody had a chance to review quickly the consent agenda? Do we have any questions? Councilor Stalder, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just wondering what payroll increase reserves are.
So, do we have a city manager available to answer that?
Mayor, I'm here. I'm just loading up the agenda. I apologize. My computer is moving very slowly right now. And if Malia's still here and she wants to jump in, she can while I pull this up.
It's a lot of times when we do the, when we budget for payroll, basically we put a holder in there. We've done the actual payroll increase in November and we have to distribute it to the department's budgets because that's how they're adopted.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Malia. All right, I got it in front of me now, you guys, if you have any more questions.
Okay, so do we have any more questions on the consent agenda? I don't see any. So are we all okay if I move on to the regular agenda? Do we have any questions on the regular agenda? Councilor O'Doherty.
That's a question for the city clerk. Is number 19, is that the suggestions we talked about for defining boundaries between where children are allowed? Thank you. Thanks for coming up with that so fast.
Vice Mayor, I have a quick question on item 17.
Go ahead, thank you.
I just wondered if we could have just a brief explanation. I remember, I thought somebody recused themselves on that, but it looks like a reconsideration did a recusal. I just wondered what that was about. Thanks.
Yes. Mayor, through you, Councilor Somerville. We did have a recusal that evening, but upon reflection on the process, the clerk brought to my attention, and she was absolutely correct, that we need to basically make a housekeeping correction procedurally to make the recusal effective in the manner that the councilor had asked it to be effective. So the issue, of course, is we have a councilor who's conflicted in terms of voting on one of the agencies because of an employment agreement. And unfortunately, the councilor recused himself from voting on all agencies, not just that agency. So this reconsideration will allow us to correct that matter in the record.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Councilor Schuster. So we need to unmute Councilor Schuster.
Oh, I'm sorry. Forgot the mic. I don't believe the last item on the agenda. It says we're just going to adjourn and do nothing else. So I'm kind of leery on that one.
Well, you will be standing ready if something occurs, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Council, to that point, I do believe we will have an executive session that evening. The city attorney and I weren't able to connect today, but I know we do have an issue that we postponed last week because, of course, we didn't have our city attorney. So, yeah, I think we will have an executive session for you.
Okay, great. So any questions on the agenda for next week? Don't see any. So how about if we move to public comments? Let me look at our participants here and see if we have any hands raised for public comments. Let me see. I see one, Sam N. If you want to get entered into the room here, then you can make your comment.
Hi
Thank
there.
you.
Can you all hear me?
Yep. Thank you. Go ahead,
Okay.
Sam.
Thank you, Vice Mayor and Council. Thanks for allowing the opportunity to speak. I'm going to be pretty quick. I'm Sam Newman. I'm a resident of Laramie. Last meeting, a councilor expressed their regret that the nuances of the conversation around police had been lost through the introduction of the COB resolution. I just think it would be a good idea to have a community forum specifically on the budget before it passed so that community members could have the opportunity to present arguments in more than 3 minutes and have a back and forth with their city council representatives. Personally, I think we should cut LPD's budget in favor of community reallocation, but I can't really convince you of that in 3 minutes or without having a conversation with any of you. So I just think that would be a good idea. I'm hoping that there's support for that in the council, and that's all I really have to say. So thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Anybody else have their hand raised? I don't see any. Just give it a little bit more time to see if anybody else wants to make a public comment. I don't see any, so we are closing the public comment section of our agenda. And then I will turn it over to Councilor Schuster. It looks like we have two motions, one to reconvene the special meeting, and then once we're in the special meeting, we adjourn to executive session. So take it away, Councilor Schuster.
Thank you. I move we reconvene to the special meeting. And then on 3A, I move that we adjourn to executive session regarding litigation, Wyoming State Statute 16-4-405, small letter A, Roman numeral 3.
Second.
That was seconded by Councilor Gabriel. And I can do a roll call vote or just
Should be able to do a voice vote when we're adjourning.
Okay, so a voice vote to adjourn to executive session?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Do we have anybody opposed? Don't think so. We will see you folks in executive session. And thank you, everybody. And thank you to city staff that are hanging in there with us related to our budget meeting tonight. Always informative, always good stuff. So see you in a bit. Maybe we'll take a 5 minute break just to